And by practicing sound healing, allow it to be that vehicle for me to go within, I was able to see that shame and guilt that often keep people like ourselves in a very vicious cycle of addiction. But I was able to move past that shame and guilt and connect to the true essence of who I am. And I believe the true essence that each and every one of you are. And that essence I'm talking about is that unconditional, agape love.
Stories are powerful.
Welcome to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast, brought to you by The Phoenix. This is a space where people impacted by substance use can come to share their story of strength and resilience, get open and honest, and inspire hope and build community through shared experience.
We'll be talking to people in our community on their own recovery journey and shine a light on the topic of recovery in all its forms. Maybe you'll hear some of your story in theirs.
Let's show the world that together we rise, recover, and live.
Yo, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Rise, Recover, Live, the podcast. I am your host, Bryce III.
And I am your other host, Liz McKean. Welcome back, everybody.
And today we got a very special guest, Liz. Why don't you help introduce Kelvin?
I would be honored to. Kelvin Young joins us today, and we couldn't be more excited to hear his story and hear all about him. Kelvin is a sound healer and a person in recovery, a guest on the Phoenix virtual platform to do some sound healing, hopefully the first of many. And yeah, we're really, really happy to have him here and to hear not only about his story, but about this very cool healing modality. So, Kelvin, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Liz and Bryce, for this opportunity to be here. And thank each and every one of you for tuning in today. It really is a special honor. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So we gonna act like I didn't ask you this before because
a little behind the scenes.
Just like recovery, life it takes for us to troubleshoot and to show up for the things that may pop up that we didn't expect. Mm-hmm. So we've been on here a couple of times trying to get this right, but now we're on the smooth path.
That's right.
To a great episode.
Yes.
And I'm gonna ask you again. How's your energy?
My energy is good right now. You know, we had a little situations pop up. You know, I work in healthcare, so we had some things pop up today, but my energy's feeling good right now. I'm just honored to be here talking with you and just to really share a little bit about recovery and my experience and my journey and sound healing. That always raises my vibrations. So I'm feeling good right now.
So I think Liz has a little bit more background on you than I do. Mm-hmm. So I'm super curious. Like, explain to me like what sound healing is and how that plays a role into recovery in general, or if you'd like to dig into some of your personal story and your personal recovery.
Absolutely, sound healing has been very instrumental for me in my own journey. Personally, as well as professionally, and having opportunities to offer sound healing sessions to different people from all walks of life. I have opportunities to go to different yoga studios, wellness centers, also go to different agencies, organizations, prisons throughout the country. And what really got me into sound healing, or my sound healing journey, is for me, after many years of battling with depression, anxiety, and drug addiction, I found that freedom from alcohol, from marijuana, from cocaine, from heroin, and even prescription opiates like Oxycontin, Vicodins, and Percocets. And for me, I began that healing journey in a drug treatment program within prison. And it was within this prison program that I learned about the transformative powers of yoga, meditation, sound healing, even creative expressive arts like poetry and journaling. And, y'all, I had a lot of misconceptions about yoga, about sound healing, about meditation. And to be quite frank, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me, a person of color, people of color, practicing yoga, meditation, sound healing at that time. So I really didn't think it was for me. But I know the things I was doing prior to going to prison, it wasn't working for me no more. So I had to try something new. I had to try something different. And by stepping out of my comfort zone, and utilizing meditation and sound healing as a vehicle to go within, because I truly do believe that healing begins from within, I was able to find that sense of calmness and inner peace, even being in a very hostile and restrictive environment such as prison. But most importantly, I was able to understand the root causes of my experiences with addiction. And from my lived experience, I learned that it was the unhealed emotional pain that I experienced in my life, the unprocessed trauma that I endured from childhood, from adolescence and adulthood, and also that toxic chronic stress all of that was at the root of my addiction. So for many years, I reached for something outside of myself to find that sense of, relief from that distress. And for me, I found it in alcohol and other drugs, and it worked for me for a while until it didn't work anymore. And I got caught up in that very vicious cycle of addiction, And I could sit here today in the studio and just say I'm grateful for all of my experiences in my life, my experiences with addiction, even my experiences with incarceration, because it wasn't for those experiences, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. I won't be the sound healing. I won't be the practitioner that I am, and able to offer sound healing to different people from all walks of life. And I've learned that sound healing is the intentional use of sound to create an environment which becomes the catalyst for our healing in the mental, emotional, spiritual, as well as physical aspects of our beings. So during a sound healing session, I use the crystal singing bowls that's made out of quartz crystals. I use the metal singing bowls from Nepal. I have the ocean drum, the gong, and different other healing instruments to help us to activate and stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, also known as the relaxation response, to help us to calm our minds, to relax our bodies, to feel our emotions, and to nourish our souls. And the meditative sounds I produce from all those different healing instruments, it promotes healing from chronic stress, muscle tension, physical pain that we feel in our bodies, feelings of anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress, sleep issues, and different other stress-related chronic health conditions that we experience in our lives. And these type of emotional distresses is, I believe, one of the reasons why people reach for alcohol and other drugs in the first place, to try to temporarily relieve those symptoms or those emotional distresses that become very intense and uncomfortable for us. And alcohol and other drugs may give us a temporary sense of relief, but for me, for many others, it causes more negative, long-lasting consequences. And I found a tool, a modality called sound healing to help me to deal with all those different types of emotional distresses, but less side effects than the heroin, the cocaine, the alcohol, and other drugs that I consumed for many years.
Yeah, nice to have something that will help make you feel better, but won't ruin your life.
That's right. That's right.
Even though in the moment, I think a lot of the times we feel like, I will do anything to make me feel better in this moment, even if it does ruin my life. But once you find something that is a salve, and that's a cool thing about it. Like, I love what you're saying about how it can give you that kind of comfort and relief. I mean, really in the moment, I think sound healing, from my understanding, to be able to make that, flip that switch in your nervous system to go from fight or flight to that kind of just relax, be able to breathe
response.
Easy.
Yeah.
To let that happen in the moment, and then also have it have the long lasting positive effects.
Yes.
It creates kind of space for healing. Is that accurate?
That's perfect, Liz. That's an accurate way to say it, And also sound healing is one of those practices that make you realize that we're more than just our physical bodies. There's a mental, there's emotional, there's a spiritual essence to mix up the totality of who we are. And that's what I believe that healing is all about, is really understanding our wholeness of who we are. And also, sound healing is a meditative practice, so it allows us to go within and really see ourselves, our world, and the people in it in a very different light. And that's what it did for me. By going within, I was able to disconnect from all these different things that's kind of trying to hijack my consciousness. And when I go in and just kind of simply be, I start to see myself in the world and the people in it in a different light. Because for many years, I had this victim mentality. I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a convicted felon, I'm a high school dropout. All those stigmatizing labels that society puts on people with lived experiences with mental health and addiction issues. And I created my own self-imposed prison, even after being released from incarceration. So therefore, once I was able to shift the way I see myself, the world, and the people in it from that victim mentality to more of an empowered mentality, understanding that I'm a person that's in recovery from alcohol and other drugs. And if I want to get metaphysical, I do understand that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And I do believe that life is about learning, growing, and evolving. I learned from my so-called negative experiences, and I gained so much knowledge from them. And that knowledge allowed my consciousness to evolve. And as a result, I became more consciously aware of the choices I make in my life. And I'm grateful to be in recovery for 13 years. And, being in recovery, what really helps me to sustain my recovery is eating a plant-based diet. because I believe what we consume in our bodies does affect our mental, emotional, and physical well-beings. And not only consumption with food, but being mindful of what I put on my skin, be mindful of what I put in my hair, be mindful of what I listen to or what I watch, because all that is consumption that can really wreak havoc on our nervous system and our overall well-being. I practice sound healing on a consistent basis, not necessarily just with the Himalayan bowls or the crystal singing bowls, but also one of the most powerful healing instruments I believe that we have, that we all have, that we can utilize, is our voice. And utilizing our voice with vocal toning or humming, that stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system as well too. That stimulates the vagus nerve, and it has so many different health benefits associated with it as well too. And I encourage people to do your own research if you choose to, and look at the benefits of humming and vocal toning can do for our wellness and holistic well-being. I move my body. Body movement is so important. I love going for walks. I love going for hikes. I love swimming. I love exercising. All these different things that the Phoenix offer. All that body movement allow the chi, the energy, to flow freely within our bodies. It's so vitally important for that energy to flow freely within us. Listen to uplifting and relaxing music. Music has been my therapist for many, many, many years. I do have a clinical therapist to help me to work things out, the stressful things, the uncomfortable things that I go through on my journey, which she is very, very awesome. But music is one of those things that there's always a song, a melody, a hook, a beat that can connect to any raw human emotion that we feel within our hearts, whether it's sadness, grief, despair, or love, peace, and happiness, or any other emotion in between. There's always songs that can help us to process those emotions in a very therapeutic and healing way, and help us to release what's no longer serving us, and help us to find that wholeness and balance within us. I also believe in being in nature. I think nature is one of the most underutilized antidepressants out there. And one of the things that we talk about with the Phoenix is the power of connection and community. I truly do believe that connection, that our true authentic connection with other human beings, or even our four-legged friends and family members, is the cure for feeling of loneliness, isolation, depression, and different other types of emotional distresses that we experience in our lives, you know? So sound healing just really allowed me to see things in a whole new, different light. And just working with thousands of people throughout my professional career with sound healing, and just allowing them to go within and really connect to themselves and to journal. It's a great process after the sound healing session to allow people to really contemplate or just understand the insight and the wisdom that comes from when we go within and connect to that true inner essence of who we really are.
It's amazing.
So there's a lot.
I know. I was like, man, I gotta break down my questions.
There's a lot here. But I think where I want to start is, were you always, like, what got you into, so the effect that it had on you when you were first introduced to it, what allowed for that receptivity that allowed for you to dive in as much as you have, that to cultivate the wisdom around these practices and these tools?
Good question, Bryce. I would have to say openness, because I was at a point in my life, you know, I've been in prison a few times. I get out, do the same thing over again, being in my active addiction, that fast criminal lifestyle. But my last prison bid that I did, my daughter Tatiana, she was my inspiration. She was my inspiration to find the inner motivation to really change my life around for the better, you know, because I wanted to be the man, the father that my daughter could look up to and be proud of. I never forget, you know, going to prison, still detoxing off heroin, cocaine, liquor, alcohol, all these different things detoxing out of my body. And I was at the point where, you know, the saying, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I was open to change. I was open to really look at life in a different perspective. And being open to that change, I was able to really utilize all the resources that was available while I was incarcerated. And, you know, the program that really helped me the most was the drug treatment program while I was in prison. And, you know, it was a 4-month program while I was incarcerated. And they taught me about addiction and how it affects us physically, mentally, and also, I believe, spiritually as well, too. but also they gave me and showed me tools such as sound healing, meditation, yoga, and different other practices to help me to deal with those emotions that I was dealing with at the time. And I made that commitment to not use alcohol or any other drugs anymore. And, here in Connecticut, there was a lot of drugs in prison, just like it's in the streets as well, too. And I had access to these drugs. But I made that commitment to myself and to my daughter to not utilize any drugs because I really wanted to change my life. And having that willingness and the openness to really change my life, I was open to try different things. And, I had a lot of these misconceptions. I grew up in a very Christian household. So therefore, there was a lot of misconceptions I heard and I believed about yoga, about meditation. I didn't really think it was for me. I honestly thought that yoga was for privileged, rich white women because the way it's marketed here in the United States. And I thought, meditation was for hippies and Buddhists, So I didn't subscribe to none of those things. So therefore, those misconceptions, they were real for me. But I was open and willing to try anything. And I'm so grateful that I did because it allowed me to just see things from a different perspective. I brought a sense of calmness within myself, even being in that environment, which so much toxicity, so much violence, so much things can really pop up from a 0 to 100 very quickly. But having that sense of calmness, even in the midst of chaos, is what sound healing brought for me. And once I was able to utilize these practices out in the community, I was like, if I could do this in prison, I definitely could do this out in the world, out in the community, out in society. And I was just open. And once I was released from prison, I really dove deep into these sound healing practices and became certified with a few teachers and to really bring this not only to myself, but people that's in or seeking recovery from alcohol and other drugs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like the second leg of that question where it's like, some people discover tools and use it to apply to their lives, and that's kind of just where the journey ends. So what was and has continued to be some of that motivation for you to like, not only has this improved and helped my life, but I'm gonna pick this up and I'm gonna learn how to teach this and I'm gonna go facilitate so I can expose more people to this. Like, what is your motivation behind that?
Being in recovery, 12 steps is the foundation of my recovery. And one of the things that I've learned is about being of service, I think about Scott, how he climbed, was it mountain climbing or ice mountain climbing and everything, and how he just had that desire to really share this with other people and how he created the Phoenix, So one of our passions is once we learn something, we have that desire to give it away with people with similar lived experience. And that was the same concept with me as well, too. Learning these holistic healing practices that's been so powerful and instrumental in my own life. Just being in recovery, we want to give back. We want to share what we learn. And it may resonate with some people. It may not resonate with some people, and that's okay. But the people that can resonate with, have them to try it out and see if it works for them. If it doesn't work, that's cool. If it works, that's cool. And it's just trying something new and being open to experiencing something. I think it's so powerful for us, and having that desire to really hold space for people to utilize this practice and figure it out works best for them. It really became my passion, and really sharing this to different people from all walks of life throughout the United States.
And I got another question, and then I could tell Liz is itching to ask you some questions, so then I'm gonna turn it over to Liz. But like, I think the biggest question, and you had mentioned, like, I didn't see nobody that looked like me, doing these things, and being from the culture, being a black man. The stigmatization in the culture around drug use and the derogatory wording behind people that are in active drug use, and kind of like the discard, the way that we discard our family members, like, that's he just and there's no talk about healing. And if it is, it's budding. It's just starting. So not having a reference point for somebody that looks like you, and then seeing yoga and seeing meditation, hippies, the Buddhists, but none of this was you. You come from this Christian background, which and some Christian households, meditation and yoga is the devil.
That's
anyway.
right, exactly.
like how did you navigate that cultural inauguration in such a way that allowed for you to pursue the development of your own understanding? Like, how did you almost, because some of that stuff could be like invisible chains. I've seen this video one time where there was this elephant and it was small and it was walking around in a circle and they had it on a chain, and then it grew up as a big elephant and the chain was just as big. Like the elephant could have broke the chain, but because it's so used to just being chained to this thing, like it feels like it can't go anywhere. And so really it's like this mentality, like you said, some of the things inside of us.
Yeah.
So how did you go about restructuring and discarding what didn't work for you to bring you to this place where you're at right now, where you're receptive to these tools and are able to facilitate these tools in the community and be, if I may say so myself, a reference point, of somebody that looks like me that's doing these things.
Yeah, absolutely, Bryce. Thank you so much for that question. I want to take in that question, and when I reflect on that, I have to point back to how addiction affected my family back in the 80s when the crack epidemic hit the urban communities. It really impacted my family where 3 of my brothers were impacted by crack cocaine. And one of my brothers, my oldest brother, is still impacted by crack cocaine to this day, addicted to crack cocaine. And in my household, we didn't talk about addiction. We didn't talk about mental health challenges. We definitely didn't talk about trauma. So therefore, we kept all of our business within the family. We even, swept it on the rug, so to speak. So therefore, many of us suffered in silence. My brothers, myself, we all suffered in silence, And this was a way that my brothers, we bonded, we connected by drinking, getting high, doing all these different things. So it was very normal, And I also have to mention that how the media back in the 80s, how they portrayed particularly black men as criminals, as hoods, as thugs, addicts, addicted to crack cocaine, dangerous, violent thugs, and, so it impacted our psyches to look at black men in a very certain way. He's an addict, he's this, he's that, all these stigmatizing labels, But there's another side to addiction, which I believe is recovery. And I still believe that there's a lot of racism and stigmatization in recovery field, as it is in the holistic healing field, in the yoga communities, and the different other things as well too. Whereas we tend to highlight, we don't tend to highlight people that look like me. So oftentimes people of color, they don't believe or see that recovery is a reality for many of us. So therefore, part of my work and my responsibility is letting people know that recovery is a reality for us as well too. And my job is to really bring more of a holistic approach to addiction recovery by utilizing these practices, and also to take away the stigma around holistic healing practices like I had. It's like this is like devil's work, or this is witchcraft, whatever the case may be. So by practicing and talking about this, I think it helps to break away the stigma and discrimination associated and the misconceptions associated with these practices, holistic healing practices, as well as recovery, and being that voice and face of recovery, because I believe that addiction is a human experience, not a human identity. Because behind the so-called addict, behind the so-called alcoholic is a human being that experienced a significant amount of trauma, emotional distress, and toxic chronic stress, and just looking for a sense of relief from that distress. And we live in a culture and a society that kind of conditions us to reach for something outside of ourselves when we're dealing with any type of pain, whether it's a physical pain or emotional pain. As a kid growing up, if I ever had a toothache or a headache, I was conditioned to reach for aspirin, Tylenol, Excedrin, what have you. And I use a physical painkiller, such as Oxycontin, Vicodins, Percocets, heroin, to deal with emotional pain. And like I said, it worked for a while. I dealt with a lot of emotional and mental health issues, a lot of poor self-esteem issues, a lot of self-hatred, self-worth issues, social anxiety. And so therefore, seeing my older brothers drinking and using drugs, I kind of gravitated towards that. And I suffered in silence because we didn't talk about that. So part of my goal is talking about these human experiences. And I believe when we normalize these human experiences and understand that they are experiences that human beings have, it helps to take away the barriers associated with people getting the treatment, the support, the healing they need in order to find freedom from alcohol and other drugs. And really understand that recovery is for everybody. Every human body that can really take on the work that needs to do in order to find freedom from these drugs or these substances. And I have to mention that there are external forces, I should say, that creates a lot of barriers within communities of color, because I believe there's oppressive systems within our culture that want to keep people, particularly people of color, obese, sick, addicted, and incarcerated because there's money in it. There's a lot of money in it. So therefore, when we understand these forces, these oppressed systems that's doing what they're doing with this mass incarceration and all the things that they're doing within our society that people don't even notice, because oftentimes it's like a fish in water. I don't think a fish realizes it's in water. And oftentimes we don't understand how racism impacts our health and well-being in communities of color, and how addiction plays a part in that, because it makes sense why you're dealing with so much stress, so much racial trauma, all these different things that we want to alleviate that pain, because we live in that type of culture. And, it makes sense why people want to do that. So therefore, we normalize these experiences and set up treatment for people, because back in the 80s, there wasn't treatment. They wasn't talking about treatment for my brothers. They wasn't talking about treatment in the Black communities. What they was talking about was prison. And they was arresting people at an alarming rate for crack cocaine. And there was so much disparities within the sentences as well, too, with crack cocaine versus powder cocaine. So there's so many different ways that racism plays within these systems, including addiction treatment, including recovery, including holistic healing spaces. But my goal, my responsibility is to really bring all that to the light by talking about it, but not just talking about it, but offering solutions. And I do offer healing spaces within communities of colors where I don't want to create no barriers, such as finances and everything, where I create spaces where people can learn about sound healing, have plant-based eating, have yoga, particularly for the BIPOC community, Black, Indigenous, people of color community, where they can learn these different practices and understand and break the myths and the misconception that they might have had, and really take personal responsibility for their health and well-being. I do a lot of, volunteer work, not only for the Phoenix, but for other organizations that's working with people in recovery. So allow them to really be introduced to different modalities to help them with their own personal healing as well.
I think so much. I honestly, so much of what you said, Bryce, I've heard Bryce say too, and it's just so. I just think it's so good to have that message be out there in as many ears as possible. And the thing that I keep hearing you say is just humanizing each individual. I mean, I think most people, the big stigma that comes with addiction is the moment someone is addicted to a substance that has been readily, like you said, culturally thrown at them. Something hurts, take this. Something is upsetting, take this. You're happy, you're sad, you're whatever. You're having a feeling, drink this. All those things. We're doing that thing that we're told to do. But then the moment we become dependent on that thing, which is, chemically just what frickin' happens, suddenly like our humanness is stripped from us. That's right, we're just an addict. We're just an alcoholic. We're just a person that's going to be thrown away. And, that's like, an incredibly frickin' privileged white girl like me has that, experience and stigma. And then a person of color is like already has that happening, whether before you even pick up the drink or the drug. And it kind of like you automatically reach for that thing, like society's telling you to do that. I almost feel like there's gotta be like, it's almost like you're already kind of within your own mind and heart because of what you've been told your whole life. You've kind of already decided that you're not even worthy of healing, that
That's
like you've
right.
already, like your humanness has already been taken away from you. And then like to have this additional layer, I mean, it's just so many layers to the dehumanizing, and to be able to pull yourself out of that and then turn around and reach back and help other people find the tools to pull themselves from that too is like, I mean, the two of you,
Thank you, Liz.
It's crazy.
Amazing.
I mean,
Much.
like it's wild too, because like, and it's almost baked into the culture that's what we do. You know, like this is how we cope.
Right.
Like, you know, I work, I come home, I have me a nightcap, you know, or, you know, on the weekend, like I go hard throughout the weekend, and on the weekend I'm partying, I'm chilling, you know, and this is what it looks like. You know, I'm stressed, you know, I smoke a blunt, like that's just, it's built into the culture. And so these things that you are, it's crazy you said something that really made me go, like I never looked at it like that. And I heard something recently too that kind of like backed that up. But you said, I was taking a physical painkiller to ease my emotional pain.
Yeah.
And I heard something recently in regards to loneliness that like people, like it's like scientists, and please double check me if you need to Google this, audience, go do that. But like somebody has said that Tylenol or aspirin has been proven to like ease loneliness. So like if you were to go, like if you, the things that you were feeling, like you would pop a Tylenol and like that would bring it ease some of those feelings that you would feel like after a breakup, right? And so that, if that's true, because once again, like, you know, there's marketers that are designing probably like different, like, well, just tell them that it's this.
Right.
well, and there's power in that. You say that and it's like, must be true.
Right.
Yeah, but flip side, you know, body keeps score.
That's right.
You know, how much is really, how separate are our emotions and our physical, you know, which I think is cool about what you're doing, Kelvin, where it's like, okay, let's take this holistic approach.
Yes.
Let's look at what we eating. Let's look at what we listening to.
Yes.
Let's look at what we consuming, not only, you know, through our mouths, but like through our eyes and through our ears.
Yes.
Let's look at these different aspects of our experience and how they contribute to our experience. And there's so many things in the human experience in general, but like if you get like even more like niche and get to like the Black human experience, it's like there's so many things that have been inherent in the culture that don't necessarily serve us.
That's right.
And so, but we don't have ready access to care, access to these resources, or, you know, even if the resource is there, it's like somebody who is talking down on us, or like, you know, this is what you need to do,
right.
and we just don't understand why you don't do it. Here goes the resources.
Right.
Or like to have somebody come up in the community, front of the community, it's like, look, man, like, you know, I know what this is like, and I've also tried this, and this has been working like this, and I can show you how to do it. And if whether you want to use it or not, I'm gonna put this here. So if you want to pick it up, if ever you decide to pick it up, it's here, and you know that it exists. So at least you have a choice, right?
That's so true.
So yeah, no, I just want to, you know, hats off to you.
Thank you.
I salute you for the work that you do.
Thank you so much, Brother Bryce. You know, and I had an opportunity to work with my friend Nikki Myers, and she's the founder of Yoga and 12-Step Recovery. Very beautiful Black woman that I had an opportunity to learn from, to grow from. And she often says that our issues live in our tissues. And I find that to be so, so true. The trauma that we experience in our life, those emotions that we suppress or repress, it's in our bodies, it's in our muscles, it's in our tissues. Our cells have memory, and our body keeps score of all of our experiences that we go through on the journey that we call life. And the thing I love about sound healing is the vibrations and tones and frequencies from all the different healing instruments that I utilize. It penetrates to the cellular level and helps to release some of that stuck energy or static emotions or stress or trauma that's in our bodies. And oftentimes it's released in a form of tears, which is a very, very beautiful thing, particularly in a society and a culture that conditions us to suppress our emotions, to suppress our tears. When able to release in a form of tears, I believe it's very therapeutic and healing for humanity. Some people get different tingling sensations in certain parts of the body, where there's any stagnations from stuck energy or emotions. I believe a lot of the physical ailments and diseases, it starts off in the energetic and emotional bodies first. So therefore, when the energy is stuck or stagnant, it manifests all kind of physical problems within our bodies. So allowing the energy to flow freely is so important, and the vibrations and sounds really allows to break up any stagnation, to allow the energy, the prana, the chi to flow freely within our bodies. Some people get different colors may come to your conscious awareness. Colors associated with the 7 main energy centers we have in our bodies, known as the chakras. And there's so much wisdom and insight in these colors. And I encourage people to, if you ever seen colors after practicing or during a sound healing session, I encourage you to do your research and figure out what those colors mean for your body, for your chemistry, for your energetic field as well too. Some people get different thoughts may come to your conscious awareness, thoughts you haven't thought about in a very long time. Because during a sound healing session, it takes us from the waking state that people are in, and in scientific terms is known as the beta state, or brainwave activities or states of consciousness. And through that process of entrainment, when you're trained with the sounds and vibrations and tones and frequencies from the healing instruments, it takes us from that waking state of beta down to an alpha state, which is, a relaxed state. And some people go even deeper to that theta delta state, which is a more deeper meditative state. And it's in that alpha, theta, delta state is, we're calm, we're relaxed. And when we're in a relaxed state, our bodies have a natural, innate ability to heal itself. But we also have the opportunity to go into that subconscious realm where all our memories at, all our stored trauma, all those programming from our culture, from society, from our caregivers, from our educational institutions. It's all stored in our subconscious mind. That's where all the power is really at. And oftentimes we don't know what we don't know until we know it. So therefore, all those habitual patterns and behaviors that's no longer serving us, all those addictive behaviors that's no longer serving us, it's all programmed and stored in the subconscious. So therefore, when we make what's unconscious or subconscious conscious, that's when we have the power to make some changes in our life. And I think one of the greatest powers that human beings have is the power of choice, that free will. So therefore, oftentimes our brain get hijacked, under addictive states. But therefore, there's, with neuroplasticity, we understand that, the body can rewire itself. That's why I believe, part of the 12-step community, they teach us to do 90 meters in 90 days, because we rewiring our brain. We're creating different neural pathways within our brains with these healthy habits that we create in. So therefore, this, human beings are so powerful, more powerful than we realize if we really tap into that power. And sound healing, when it takes us in, it really allows us to connect to that inner wisdom, that inner healer within inside of ourselves, that inner GPS to help us to navigate in a way that works best for us. And, if I never tried it, if I would have stuck with my misconceptions about these modalities, or that's for them, or that's not for us, we don't do that, I wouldn't be here today and really sharing this with both of you, Liz and Bryce, and talk about the power of sound and healing effects that it has on people that's in or seeking recovery. So you probably could tell I'm just excited about talking about this, and really encourage people to really experience something new if you never experienced sound healing before.
Yeah. So, and I think with that, so we're gonna have Liz ask her special question of the day. But before that, so I'm somebody off the street. In particular, I'm somebody from the neighborhood, right? And how do I get my hands on sound healing? Like, where do I even start?
Yeah, great question. A great way to start is we could go to YouTube. YouTube have different sound healing, sound meditations that you can listen to. But it's nothing like a live sound healing session, because not only you can hear the sounds, but you can feel the vibrations from all the different healing tools that sound healers, sound practitioners utilize. But I encourage people to do your little research on sound healing, what it is, and the benefits associated with sound healing. And also check out Google and see where there's different sound healing sessions going on in your community, in your neighborhood. And, I didn't know too many Black sound healers until I put out the call from them. And, we're going to do, we call a a panel discussion, all Black sound healers, 5 of us, and we're going to talk about how we got into sound healing, how it benefit us, some of the misconceptions that we had, some of the barriers that we see and still see, and just really let people know that there are Black sound healers that's doing amazing work throughout the country, throughout the world, really. So therefore, allowing people to know that we are out here. Other practitioners of color is out here as well too, and we just need to do the research. You need to really explore and see what's going on and see what's available out here in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and music is a form of sound healing within itself, and how powerful music is, and how it really touches us, and it can help us to shift our emotions, help us to shift our energy, helps to shift our vibrations and our thoughts and everything as well too. So most of us, I would say that, I would bet to say that music is very powerful in our culture, so therefore we're using a form of sound healing as well too, when we listen to certain songs and music that really touch us in a very deep and authentic way. So really, I encourage people to do the research, explore about, where you could go to a live sound healing session, and, more information about sound healing and its many, many benefits associated with it.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be sure to link, places that folks can find you and your specific offerings,
yes.
And maybe even any that you would recommend in the show notes here. So if you're listening and you want to take a look, we'll put some links in. And I know, when I first, I've been doing yoga for a long time now, and I teach yoga, but when I first was interested in yoga, I popped in a tape in the VCR, and it was like, it was some celebrity that had started to do yoga, and I was just like, I'm going to do their yoga because that seemed like the safest way to do it. And I did it in my living room for a while before I felt safe enough to go out in the world. So that's the beauty of this time that we live in right now. Like, if you want to dip your toe in, you can do it in the quiet and the privacy of your own home. And then when you're ready to dip your toe elsewhere, if you choose to, there's a whole community and people that will welcome you with open arms. And there's community for everybody out there.
Yes, very important point, Liz. And there's certain applications that you could download to your phone as well too, that have sound meditations or sound healing that you could do in the comfort of your own home. Again, YouTube have free sound healing on their sound healing videos and things you can listen to. I encourage people to listen to anything that's on the application or on YouTube with headphones, and just lay down and just listen to the sounds for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 25 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever time that you're allowed to do that. It really has a profound healing effect on our mind, body, and our soul.
Or you could do like Liz and go get a VCR.
I knew. I was like, he is over there laughing at me. All right. She's been around a lot of years, folks. Oh my goodness. Well, Kelvin, I'll ask the big question that we always give too much drum roll leading up to. What is a message that you might send to a previous version of yourself? Which, of course, there have been many, many versions of Kelvin, but the Kelvin that is back there in time that you think would really be able to use some wise words from the Kelvin of today. What might you say to that person?
I like Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. There's so much pain, so much hurt, a lot that I've done to myself, and I was always able to forgive other people, but the hardest person to forgive was myself. And being in prison, especially my last time, I believe it was divine intervention, because I was taken out of a place where I couldn't leave, but I had an opportunity to do the inner work, the inner healing I needed to do in order to find freedom from alcohol and other drugs, So as I was able to do practicing meditation and yoga and sound healing, I was able to go within and just really kind of like explore my inner landscape and understanding the pain and the hurt that I was dealing with at a very long time. And just real quickly, I love to share a poem that I wrote while I was in the drug treatment program that was very therapeutic for me then, and it's therapeutic for me now to share with each and every one of you. And the name of this poem I wrote while I was in prison is called Eyes of a Silent Sun. Look into my eyes and tell me what you see. Is it a lost soul with no control, trying to be free? As I look into the mirror and stare into my eyes, I see all the anger and self-hate, hypocrisy and lies. I see resentment, frustration, embarrassment, and pain. I see jail bars and fancy cars as I cruise down memory lane. I see the feelings I repressed, going back to childhood. I need to let go of those feelings. I would if I could. I see the hurt that I caused to the ones I love the most. I see my brother on his wedding day as we celebrate with a toast. I see the good and bad times that I experienced in my life, but it's so hard to let go of all that bitterness and strife. There's a sense of sadness when you look into my eyes, like the ones you see when a close relative dies. But this death is not physical. It has to do with the soul. It's that morbid feeling we get when our spiritual energy is low. It's like nothing matters anymore, like that day when I was fired, feeling depressed and weak, can't sleep, but I'm so tired. I'm tired of all the pain, the hurt, and the rain, from that cloud that keeps following me. Sometimes I think I'm insane. But when I look out the window and see the beauty of the lake, it reminds me of good times, like when I was 9 and things were fine. And with the sunrise, I can feel the presence of the Creator. When I look out my window, I see me in the beauty of nature. I'm a part of God's creation, nature, and humanity. The loving spirit that's in Jesus is also in me. So I learned to love myself and others just for who we are. And I learned all about this love looking out my window with jail bars. And for me, I learned about love in a very unusual place. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Behind bars in prison. And by practicing sound healing, allow it to be that vehicle for me to go within. I was able to see that shame and guilt that often keep people like ourselves in a very vicious cycle of addiction. But I was able to move past that shame and guilt and connect to the true essence of who I am. And I believe the true essence that each and every one of you are. And that essence I'm talking about is that unconditional agape love. Now, for me, love is more than, a human emotion. I believe that love is a vibration. It's a frequency. It's also our natural state of being. So once I was able to understand that the same love and divine essence that created the sun, the moon, the stars, all the beauty of nature, it created me. It created each and every one of you. And that power allowed me to shift my consciousness, shift the way I see myself, the world, and the people in it. And allow me to understand what healing is really all about, understanding our wholeness of who we are. And I'm just so grateful for all those experiences I went through in my life because it taught me so much. It taught me so much. And I think about it, how can we truly appreciate the sunshine without experiencing the rain in our lives? How can we truly appreciate the good times in our life without experiencing the so-called negative times in our life? And like a beautiful flower needs both the sunshine and the rain in order to grow. And I believe the same concept applies to us as human beings. We need all of our experiences in order to grow in our lives. Because people in recovery, one thing we know about resilience, but we grow through our challenges and our struggles and our difficulties. That's how we grow. That's how we learn. We have the opportunity to learn and grow from those tough, challenging, intense times that we go through in our lives. And I'm just honored to be a part of the Phoenix where we create this community of connection, and we give people an array of different modalities, practices, wellness tools that they can utilize to support them on their healing journey. So not only the tools that we teach, the volunteers teach, and we share with other people, but it's the community, the power of connection. The connection in itself is a very healing practice alone. And when we come together, like-minded individuals, and we get able to share our own stories, feeling safe enough to be vulnerable, to share our experiences, and understanding that there's a lot of hope in these rooms, within these Phoenix walls, and understand that we can learn tools to help us to deal with anxiety, to help us to deal with depression, help us to deal with PTSD, all these different other types of emotional stresses that we reach for substances to help to alleviate. So the power of connection, the power of community, and understanding who we truly are, my journey, it made life worth living, and I regret nothing, and I took those opportunities to learn from and grow from those experiences.
Thank you. I sound like an empowered man. You're on an empowered journey to empower others. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Man, Kelvin, man, I'm glad to have met you. I'm glad to have had this conversation.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's done a lot for me, so I know that this is gonna do a lot for the audience. And yeah, Liz, take us away.
All right. Yeah. Well, I echo Bryce. Thank you so much. It was really just such a gift to have you here and to hear your words, and really happy that we have them recorded. Technology couldn't outdo us, and we've got it.
That's right.
And
That's right.
now other folks can hear. So thank you. And again, we will make sure that we link places to find you, Kelvin. If folks want to get more of you, which I'm sure they will, because gosh, I already want to go and re-listen to this episode. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you,
Bryce. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It means a lot to me. And I just encourage people to do whatever it is to help us to take care and nurture ourselves, because I believe that self-care is a form of self-love. And we do the things that honor and nurture ourselves in a holistic way, meaning mentally, emotionally, spiritually, as well as physically, is a true act of self-love. Because when we take that time out to relieve stress, to find that inner peace and balance, we can rationally respond to situations instead of emotionally reacting to them. And I know when I emotionally react to things, I say things and I do things that I later regret. But when we're less stressed and more relaxed, we think clearly, make better decisions and choices that resonate with our greater good. We're able to strengthen our immune system, decrease our heart rate and our blood pressure. We gain more mental clarity and insight. We're able to tap into the love, the peace, the happiness, the joy that dwells inside of each and every one of our hearts. All we need to do is go to that Phoenix app, take a class and simply just be. Knowing that inner peace and that unconditional agape love is our natural state of being. So again, Bryce, Liz, thank you so much for allowing me to share my experience of strength and hope to our recovery community.
It's very much our pleasure. And thank you. You said it all. Yes. Head to the Phoenix app.
Yes.
If you haven't already, hit subscribe. Send this episode to somebody today, because I think everybody needs to hear these words. And we will see you next time.
All right.
So now you're excited. Bryce, Liz, how do I get involved with the Phoenix? Well, my friend, it is super simple. We actually have an app. Head over to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or look in the show notes of this podcast, wherever you're listening to or watching this podcast, and go download the Phoenix app.
The Phoenix app makes it so easy to find classes that are near you, or to access our virtual class schedule where you can hop on from the comfort of your home. You can also join our groups and have a conversation with someone from the Phoenix community from anywhere in the world. Please make sure that you join the podcast group where you can connect with Bryce and I and other listeners. Everything that you need is in the show notes. You can also head to our website at www.thephoenix.org. And maybe while you're there, you click the volunteer tab and get even more involved.